you look at that, for instance, the our local barber that we had, Nui Dat. Well, we actually found him. He actually got killed in an ambush. He was an actual VC, but there he was a barber on our base. So yeah, so you couldn't tell whether they were friendlies or non-friendlies, because the old cliche was they were farmers by night and the Viet Cong, farmers by day and Viet Cong by night. Look, drugs was readily available to us. Yeah, you could, like, you go and buy a packet of smokes today. That's why you could buy it over there. You go and buy a packet of cigarettes, which was your marijuana and things
After
like
that,
that.
have you had flashbacks?
Yeah, I can trace them back to the day I was shot at, to that day and the day I was blown up. I can remember them vividly this day. Anyway, we're sitting there and we're just facing out, and all I heard this mighty kaboom, and I'm shouting dirt and rocks, and my ears are ringing. I can smell smoke and everything else, and I said, "What the hell was that?" And I turned around, and he was the APC, actually sitting on the back end of a tank. Probably half a dozen guys laying out in various states of shock and broken limbs. Yeah, look, it's hard. It's, okay, somebody standing beside you can get shot. Okay, you're there straight first way. You're putting on a pressure bandage. You're talking to them, reassuring and so forth. But this situation, you've just got to listen to them moaning and groaning and crying and yelling for help and things like that. That just hangs with you for quite a while.
Lester, we'll make a start now. So can you give us an introduction to your life story?
Yeah, no worries. Chris, my name's Lester Ray Mengel. I'm born on the 10th of February 1951 in a little place called Clifton, up on the Darling Downs there. I come from a family of two, just my brother and I.
So when you walked into the recruiting office, what, you gave us a little bit of the story, but what was it that made you go for Army over, say, Navy or Air Force?
They were the first response to my request about who wants me. So the guy there said to me, "Yeah, well, we'll have you." So I thought, okay. I went over there, and so he gave me all the application forms and all that sort of stuff. I took them home to Mum, because Mum had to sign them those days, because I was under 19. She had to approve for me to so forth. But Mum was very supportive. So I went back, had the aptitude tests, had the medicals, and got sworn in and put on a train and sent to Sydney, and then a bus from Sydney to Kapuka.
Okay, Lester. How much notice were you given before you were shipped off to Vietnam?
Well, we knew that we were the next battalion to go back in 1970. So more or less when the battalion came back, we knew. So we knew a couple of years in advance, but the exact date we really didn't know. Probably didn't know that for at least a couple of months prior to actually leaving.
And how did they get you over there?
We flew over by Pan Am, so it was excellent. Took off from Garbutt, the Air Force base there, and looked after by all American staff on board. It was excellent.
So what were your first impressions of Saigon?
Well, as we come into land, you can see all the crater holes and so forth. But as I said earlier on, the biggest shock was seeing the poverty that was there, and the people fighting over your scraps with the cut lunches that we had. And the weather was hot. It was stinking hot, and so forth. But the biggest thing was kids mainly fighting over your scraps that you threw out in the bin. Yeah.
Were they actually fishing out of the bins themselves?
Yeah, actually fishing out, getting into the rubbish bin itself, and pulling out the boxes and pulling out what scraps we had left. Yeah.
And what about the scale of the place in terms of operations? I mean, from what I understand, there was a huge amount of traffic.
Yeah, at Tonsanut Airport, there was a heap of traffic because a lot of military aircraft from America there, and I'm not sure who the traffic control. Obviously, the traffic controllers were either American or someone like that, But yeah, that would have been a daunting task for them to manage all the traffic, because if they had to, get a squadron of planes off the ground quickly, obviously they would have had to divert. Yes, but we more or less had a pretty smooth approach coming in.
And so you went straight to Nui Dat?
Yep, straight to home, straight to Nui Dat, yeah, where we went into our 4-man tents and and set up, and that was it. So, yeah.
And how? I mean, 4-man tents, but were they enclosed tents or?
Yeah, they the sides were enclosed, and we had sandbag walls, because in case of that we were actually being bombed or shot at, or whatever the case be, and they were a little bit higher than the beds. So yeah, but no, just normal canvas tents that we had.
Okay, so there were another 2 battalions there.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
A full 3 company by the time you came up to scratch.
Yeah, we had another 3 battalions all up. Plus you had support from 1 armoured regiment with their Centurion tanks, and then you had cavalry there with their APCs, and the Americans were there with their howitzers and artillery and helicopters, and so it was just like a complete setup, like a township. We had our own doctors, our own hospital, our own ambulances, our own rubbish tip. The only thing we relied on was the food coming in from Vung Town. Yeah.
In terms of everything that you've been trained in prior to going over, what were some of your first thoughts in terms of now that you're actually in the place and your reaction to it? Yeah,
I suppose once we got into Nui Dat was because of the area itself, we really didn't get a very good look at the terrain that we were operating in, because they had the actual base, and it was all barbed wired, and then we had probably a kilometre of just sheer nothing, whereas so if we were attacked, then there was that, say, like that clear kind of zone where the enemy could be killed. But I mean, once we got involved and I started patrolling and so forth, it was just like a very antiquated country, like a country that's been set back in time. For instance, like we come across one village, and the only village in our province, in the Phuoc Tuy province, that had streetlights, but they didn't work. And just looking at the housing and the types of conditions that they were living in. The rubber plantations, you could tell how they harvest the rubber, because a lot of them, 9 times out of 10 when we patrol through the rubber, they were actually harvesting the rubber at the same time. So so we're more like protecting agencies and things like that. But very antiquated. If you had money, you lived in the upper crust things. In Berea itself, the streets were very dirty and things like that. So there's no curb and channel or anything like that.
And you mentioned before lunch that you saw yourself, or you were essentially you were regarded as a peacekeeping force.
Well,
on your way over. Yeah,
well, that's where we were over there, like a peacekeeping force or a policing force, whatever you want to call it. We were over there just to keep the North Vietnamese Viet Cong out of South Vietnam. We were allocated a province that was ours, Australians, and that's the way I just looked at it, and that's the way we patrolled it. Yeah.
Can you give us a bit of a picture of, I guess, just as a new person landing into Nui Dat, just getting to know the base and I guess a detailed range of facilities and where things were and what.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
On a day-to-day basis.
Yeah. It will come into Nui Dat. Normally, the only Hercules that would land was the Americans' Herc, which had the twin engine. They'd normally come in, hit, and then hit reverse thrust. Then you'd get out quickly because they'd be in and land and head off. We had Sass Hill where the SAS were. They were on top of that. and then we had the battalions just spread out. Like for Nui Dat, we had one battalion, say to the east of it, and then another one southwest, and another one southeast, and the rest was looked after by Americans and D&E platoon, and we also had a motel for the POWs that had running water and food for them and so forth like that.
Actually, on the base itself, a motel.
Yeah, no, that was just on my pun, mate. So, yeah. Yeah, it was it was like a barbed wire prison that they had shelters in for the prisoners of war that we used to kill. We called it the motel.
Why was that? Did you?
Oh, it's just the signs that the military police had up. Welcome to Nui Dat Motel. Yeah, hot coal running water, free meals, things like that. Yeah, it just adds humour, a bit of humour to the place. I thought it was very good.
Absolutely, no.
Yeah.
That kind of detail's wonderful.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, the reason I remember all this was that my boys, I've never ever shown them all my slides about Vietnam, and they pestered me enough to last week to pull them all out, and we went through them. So yeah, it was good to remember things like that, and and the boys got a kick out of it too. So yeah.
And how many, I guess, POWs would you have held in the hotel at any time?
It just varied. They sometimes they may have taken them straight to Vung Tau, or they may have been 2, 3, or more. And yeah, a lot of them were killed in ambushes and things like that. But I mean, a few were held there. Yeah. Not probably just for enough time to be questioned by the intelligence staff people or the military police, and then processed further down to Vung Tau, Saigon, wherever.
And in terms of the climatisation that you were talking about this morning, can you give us a bit of a detail through how that truly helped you in the ops that you were about to do?
Yeah, we went out for probably about for a week, staying out overnight. And we were just working in close proximity of Vung Tau, working in bamboo and things that we were going to be exposed to in the longer run, and also the farmers and the villages and things like that. They just wanted to give us an idea of what to expect. I mean, you look at that, for instance, our local barber that we had, Nui Dat. Well, we actually found him. He actually got killed in an ambush. He was an actual VC, but there he was a barber on our base. So yeah, so you couldn't tell whether they were friendlies or non-friendlies, because the old cliche was they were farmers by night and the Viet Cong, farmers by day and Viet Cong by night. And that was for the ladies as well, because there were a few ladies that were killed. So yeah.
Did you have any reservations with some of the Vietnamese that were working on base in Nui Dat, just in terms of their presence being there?
No, because I looked at them. I said obviously they had to pass a very stringent clearance type security. To be able to work on base, so I just thought, well, they've got through it and it was all right. But it was ironic to hear that, that he was killed. Yes, but can't trust everybody.
And so, what were some of the other things, I guess, that you did in terms of climatisation versus the training that you got to help you get your grounding?
Well, we practiced our patrolling techniques, like for instance. Patrolling in close country, like heavily wooded area, you had different patrol formations compared to patrolling through rice paddies, patrolling along tracks and roads and things like that. So it's just everything that we're more or less trained in Australia, we're more or less put into practice, except we were in I'll probably say a semi-safe zone where we weren't going to really be injured or hurt out. Seriously, because it was pretty well a safe zone. Yes.
How did your patrol formations vary given the across different terrain that you were patrolling through?
Yeah, okay. Well, let's look at heavily trained area. We may be in a single file, one behind the other. Some terrains where there may be not as much timber and so forth, we may go into arrowhead formation, which is just, as I said, shaped like an arrowhead with the gun on the right or the gun on the high ground. On roads, we may be on staggered file, or it's just, I would set the stagger, so if I was on the right hand side of the road, then the second scout would be on the left, section commander on the right, and so forth, so all the way back. So yeah, except for the gun. If the high ground was on the left, then he would be up that side. Yes, so yeah. Yes, it was different. But see, we trained in all of that prior to going. So, and we had signals. Like if the section commander, if he wanted us in staggered file, arrowhead, whatever the case be, he just did a signal and we'd automatically go into that that he wanted.
And that's a visual signal or a verbal?
Yep, no visual signal. Yeah, silent signals we used to call them. Yeah. So the biggest thing was to keep an eye on the section commander. Well, the person that was going to pass it down, then it'd be just passed down the chain, so to speak. So everybody had to keep an eye on one another, so to speak, in case there was something sent down. And
Can I ask, can you recall the visual signals for those various formations?
Yeah.
What were they?
Okay. What we got was just staggered file, was just like that, meaning one on each side. Okay. Bearing in mind you had rifles, so you always had your rifle in your trigger hand, the staggered file. Arrowhead would be like that with the weapon, and things like that. Straight line would be your hand going straight up and down like that, and yeah. And it might be a gun group up that side to the high ground, things like that. So he would dictate where he wanted the gun to go. Yeah.
Were there particular, I guess, cultural things or aspects of the Vietnamese, witnessing them for the first time, that kind of stood out to you or made an impression?
Yeah, well, the Buddha did. I'd never, coming from Australia, I've been overseas. I mean, you hear about Buddha, they worship Buddha and all that sort of stuff, and then you actually see it everywhere. Their little shrines with their incense sticks and all that sort of stuff, and they're praying and things like that. Yeah, I won't say it's culture. It just opened my eyes a bit that there was other things other than the God that we believe in, so to speak.
And how about the training and preparation that you received in Australia? Were there, I mean, obviously acclimatisation seems to be the time where you're adapting that to your specific terrain and jungle.
Yeah.
Were there new things that I guess you picked up that you couldn't have been prepared for in Australia?
No, not really. Probably only the people that we were dealing with, the actual Vietnamese themselves. We had the police over there were called white mice because they were just dressed up in white, and they had if they blew the whistle and you didn't stop, they shot you. Doesn't matter who it was. So we had a little bit of a fear about those guys. Well, that's what we were told, and we had a bit of fear about them. A couple of them I know of got killed, the white mice, because we used to have a semi-trailer come from Fung Tau with ice, and in Berea he used to stand up on the box and he wouldn't move. The semi-trailer once they had cut, as semis do, they cut the corner. He didn't move off his box, so he ended up in the back wheels of the trailer. Yeah. So we were advised for a while there just to be careful of them. Yeah.
So if they yelled stop and you didn't stop, they would shoot.
Yep.
Would that apply to Australian soldiers as well?
Well, we were all taught that. As soon as they blow their whistle and you didn't stop, they'd shoot, and they'd shoot to kill. So we were just taught to say, blow the whistles, just stop, look around. They were fearsome little people, the white mice.
And what were you told or trained regarding the actual the VC and NVA themselves before you went over?
Yeah, we were told that there were regular battalions, like reservists and regular armies, and one was would fight by day and by night, and the other one would just farmer by day and enemy by night, and they wore different uniforms and things like that. So they were the main areas that we were looking at. And just going on some intelligence, some of the operations that we went out on patrols on, we would have an idea from the intelligence of what regular units, enemy units were in that area. They were there, although Fukui province was a long way from up the top end. They were well and truly entrenched in in and around Saigon, Bangtao, and those places.
What I'd like to do now, I guess, Lester, is just to like really walk through almost day by day of one of your patrols, I guess.
Yeah.
Like one of your 6-week patrols.
Yeah.
Just
Okay.
to get a real sense of what it was like. You
yeah.
mentioned this morning that you'd spend quite a few days in preparation before you'd head out.
Yeah.
So what would you do before? How'd that work?
Well, the preparation side of it, I mean, let's say the day prior, before you fly out or whatever the case be, you'd be given what we used to call first line ammunition. We had 60 rounds each. That was our first line ammunition. The gun had 1,200 rounds. Then you had your grenades and your claymore mines. And then with your rations, what you'd have to do is break up your ration packs to, some of it was might have been shit, so you give it to your mate. He might have liked it. And then you just tried to make your load a lot lighter. Not necessarily go without, but just make it a bit lighter. People that didn't drink tea, for instance, wouldn't take their tea. For instance, I didn't smoke, but I used to take my smokes because I can make a fortune. Because when the guys that smoked all their smokes, they knew I always had a lot of smokes in me on my pack, and I'd sell them. So they wanted the habit. They had to pay for it. And then we had our grenades. We had our 2 grenades each, and so forth. And then it was a matter of say going out. Go out. Say you patrol for the day. Okay, so you come in just before sunset. You'd be harboured up. You'd be in what we call all-round defensive position, where you have your guns posted. Again, depending what type of area that we're in, whether we're on full stand to, whatever the case be. Just prior to sunset, we'd send out what we call a clearing patrol, and that would just clear probably about 100 metres in front of us, that we knew that there was nothing in that area before dark coming on. Stand to, and then it would come back from the platoon commander, section commander, to stand down, and the gun had to be manned. The gun was always manned with 2 people on it. And so what you do is you put your hoochie up, set out your bed, go to sleep. Again, you'd be woken up just before sunrise. So stand to, drop your hoochies, pack it all up. Sunrise, a clearing patrol will go out again just to make sure everything was clear. And then you'd come back in again, stand to, and then after a while you'd stand down. And then they may say, righto, 50-50. 50-50 stand to means that, because you used to work at 2-man teams, like number 1 scout and number 2 scout, they'd been one pit together. So one would stand to, laying on the ground with the weapon in the action position, while the other guy would clean his weapon first. That was the first priority, was clean the weapon, make sure it's serviceable, have a shave, have a breakfast, and then they would swap over. Then, if he'd done it, then he would go into stand to position, and then I would have a shave or whatever the case be, clean my weapon, and then just wait for the orders for the rest of the day to see what we were going to do. Yeah. One night we were contacted that we just came into one, set up and around some bamboo, and we had the gun went off, like the gun started firing, and then we all got out of our beds and started firing as well. We knew that there were people there, But when we went back, when the clearing patrol went out the next morning, because we never ever went out during the night, we waited till our first light and we get out there, and all we found was a pair of sandals. That's all that was left. What they'd done was people that we had shot or killed or whatever case be, other people that came in and taken them out during the course of the night. They were like that. I can remember where we set up a big ambush at Wah Long, and we killed literally dozens and dozens, and we had a multiple burial where they brought a dozer and dug a big hole and put them all in that. By the end of the night and the day, they had been dug up and taken away for a proper burial by their next of kin and so forth. So, yeah, so that's the type of people that we were dealing with, and you know, so they obviously respected their the next of kin. Yeah.
So the ambushes that you would set would be an integral part of your general patrol, or
it could be, again, depending on the information or the intel that we were getting in. We would set up an ambush where we would have say the gun, and well, that would be what we used to call the killing zone. So, and then we would have triggers at either end of where the ambush was, to let us know that it's been set off, and just full firepower just went straight into that. Yeah.
what kind of triggers would you set up?
Trip flare. You know, as soon as the trip flare went off, and then you know you'd see the silhouettes, and then you know you had something to aim for, and so forth. So yeah, so that's what we mainly used, the trip flares, and then we had may have used a claymore, because we used to look at that if we had an ambush. Then we may look at setting up a secondary killing zone where we thought they may have escaped with claymores and things like that. So yeah, always look at the escape routes and things like that. So yeah.
Okay. And in terms of, I guess, just standard rules of engagement, what were your instructions, particularly as a forward scout, I guess, just in terms of if you saw something?
Yeah, again, it was if I was in imminent danger of being shot myself, then I should return fire. If I saw them before they saw me, normal enemy signal, and then they would we would go to ground, and the section commander would either put up what we call a snap ambush, which we just set one up quickly. But the other one I spoke about was what I call a deliberate ambush, and this one's a snap one, where it's a quick one where we're gonna may only be two enemy. Whatever. Again, it just depended on how many enemy there was. If there was 2 to 3, we'd probably look at taking them on as a section. Any more than that, we probably wouldn't look at taking them on. We might just probably let them go past, and then observe their movements and things like that.
If you're walking through the bush and you see a couple of VC and VA also walking through the bush in a different direction, how like logistically, would you actually set up a snap ambush?
Yeah, that would be up to the section commander. Like, for instance, if we're going forward, they might be coming across our front, so he may get the gun group up beside me and set them out, whereas that as soon as they got to a certain point, he'd say fire, and then we'd all open fire on them and so forth. So, yeah. All tactics.
Yeah, absolutely. And was there much sort of souveniring or done in terms of VC, the enemy that was shot?
Not from. I believe that the Vietcong held, because we used to bury their dead, you know, with the way people should be buried, and they respected us for that. The only thing that we would have taken off them would have been any intel like maps, weapons, and stuff like that. We wouldn't pilfer. Well, in what I saw, we didn't pilfer watch or anything like that you see or may have heard of. No, I wasn't into souvenir hunting or anything like that. Yeah.
And just in terms of the burial, I mean, obviously they're a totally different religion. Were the way that you would bury enemy that had fallen, was it to subscribe to their particular belief in burial? Or?
No, what we would just dig a hole, bury them. We'd know that later that day or that night that they would be come back and be resumed, and they'd be taken away for their own proper burials. I mean, we wouldn't bury them like 6 foot down like we do today. We just bury them deep enough where they'd be buried into the ground, and put the topsoil on top, it's either dirt on top, and just keep a mound there to identify that there's a body there. So.
This might sound like a gruesome question, but if you were aware that VCMVA would be coming back to collect their own, why would you actually bury them in the first place?
No, it may not be it may be their next of kin, their mothers, their fathers, or whatever the case be. I mean, that's what 9 times out of 10, probably 10 times out, that's who came back and resumed the bodies, was their immediate family. The only time that we would look at, normally they were just the farmer by day and Viet Cong by night, but those type of, the regular army people were normally in bigger forces, like companies, battalion type forces. So yeah, these were just the part-timers, I'll call them.
Right.
So, and they would be resumed by their immediate next of kin, which may not have had any responsibility for the war whatsoever. So we more or less looked at that as.
Was that a difficult thing to come to terms with for you as a soldier over there? I guess that, for want of a better word, the plight of the South Vietnamese who were maybe forced to be VC at night because of.
Yeah, it was, it was very difficult. I mean, you could probably put it in the same scenarios we've got in Iraq at the moment. Was they all wear the same clothes, they all have the same facial expressions, same coloured skin, and it's very difficult to be able to identify friendlies and so forth. But anybody after dark was classified as breaking curfew and was enemy. So yeah, and don't get me wrong, that I believe that the Viet Cong also forced some villages to fight in their cause and so forth. So and some of those ended up being captured and ended up working for us. Like, we may have taken one out on patrol with us, like the one we had with my mine incident, for instance. Yeah, he was a Viet Cong that thought, well, change sides. I use the word change sides, and assisted us. And I mean, we had full faith in them. We issued them weapons, ammunition, and all that sort of stuff. So yeah.
I guess once they'd defected across, there was no real thought that they could go back.
Well, one would assume that, yeah. Well, not assume, but hope that as well, yeah. But I mean, I got on really pally with one of them. It was hard to look at this young kid. I mean, well, we're both the same age, in fact, 19, and we're both opposite sides, but then we're also now we're on the same side. And he was the same guy that pointed out their mine to me, where it was, and so forth. So I ended up buying him a couple of beers later when I caught up with him. So
I've heard some very awful stories about what some of the I guess the MVA or VC would do to local villages, village chiefs, etc., in terms of forcing them to work for them.
Yeah.
Did you witness any of that?
No, I didn't see any of that whatsoever. We were in my time, the time I was with the battalion, we more or less just patrolled in the mountains and so forth. We went through some villages, but the villages that we went through are more or less pretty close to Nui Dat and things like that. But I never witnessed any atrocities against the village chief and all of that. I know they did happen, so forth, and but myself, no.
It's fortunate.
Yeah, yes.
When you, Lester, when you did pickets at night,
Hmm.
is that the same as doing an ambush? Would you always do an ambush at night as well?
No, it was the ambush. May only go. We may only set up an ambush for a couple of hours, or we may stay all night. But pickets are definitely all night. Our pickets used to range anything from 2 to 3.5 hours on picket at a staggered rotation. So yeah.
How would you keep awake?
Very difficult. Normally you'd talk with your well, not talk, but you whisper with your mate, things like that, and lots of noises, lots of things you start to hear. And we used to have over there what we used to call fireflies. They were a fly that used to emit a light and so forth. So yeah, no, it was difficult, but you learn to get yourself into a routine with it and so forth. Yeah, and then we used to look at rotation at the time periods, like if you'd done the midnight shift from midnight to say 2, then the next time you were on, you're either on the first or the last shift, so you weren't getting that broken sleep all the time. Yeah. It was something that we had to teach people how to do write up picket lists. I mean, it's everybody would say, yeah, just write up a picket list and give everybody the same time. But that person that works from midnight till 2 is going to get that broken sleep every time, and after build up a period of time, they're not going to be any good to you. So you need to structure it as such where everybody gets an equal amount of sleep.
Sounds like a good idea.
Yeah.
Now, this might sound like a silly question. It probably is. When you would go off on an operation, since you were the forward scout, would you lead the way? I mean, when you'd walk off into the mountains and go on an operation, would you lead the way, or was it only you would be the forward scout when you knew that there was enemy around?
No, I'd lead the way. The section commander would say, we need to go in that direction, so I pick something out, maybe 300-400 metres up that way, and move up that way, and he'd have his compass out to make sure that we were on that bearing, because we had bearings we used to go by, certain areas that we patrolled, and then he'd keep me on that bearing, and so forth. Yeah. No, every time, if there was, depending what the orders were. I mean, I was in 3 platoons, so if 3 platoon was patrolling, one of the other sections may have led first. We might have been at the back end or something like that. So yeah, but I was still first in the section at the back. So yeah.
Now, you talked about getting to know, well, you got to know some of the black Americans.
Yes.
Did you get to know some whiteys as well?
Not a great deal. We found that they weren't as friendly as the Negro guys. We'd walk into their bar and they'd say, "Oh, Ozzy, let me buy you a beer." And naturally, you wouldn't stop at 1, you wouldn't stop at 2, you'd stay with them, And at those days, there was a lot of, I'll call it discrimination between them, and that come pretty obvious to me when I rejoined the army in '78. That a mate and I, we were tasked to move an American battalion from 6 RAR back out to Greenbank, and we had something like about 21 odd trucks, and the truck that I had, it was all dark fellas, and they got on it, but a white fella accidentally got on the back, and they physically threw him out of the truck onto the bonnet of the truck behind me and said, "You're on the wrong truck, white boy." But working with them now, which in my role as the risk management safety person within the division, I've seen that dissipate. It's not that there anymore. They really got on, well, from what I've surmised, just working with the ones I have, they seem to get on working well together. There doesn't seem to be any of that racial hatred that I've seen going back all those years. So yeah, but for some reason they always got on well with us.
Well, I suppose it was at the height of a lot of those, you know, demonstrations and discrimination parades that they had in America.
Yeah.
So that could have been embedded also in the army. I mean, why not?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, it's I think they had their demonstrations probably had hundreds of thousands more because they were losing a lot more people being killed and wounded over there than we were. But then again, they were pretty well in the thick of it all, where they were and so forth. So yeah, I think that played a lot on it.
Now, we've heard and seen a lot of Americans, whether white or black, doing patrols in Vietnam, smoking fags, listening to music, eating, all that kind of stuff. Did you witness that?
Yeah, quite often. You know, when we might have, for instance, when that APC got blown up, we had Americans with us. Yeah, no, that was, that's the sort of stuff that, you know, that they were doing. Now, I don't think whether it was rife throughout the whole US Army. I wasn't sure. But see, our training installed us that no radios. The only time you smoked was when you were told to smoke, which was when we normally had our breaks from patrolling and things like that. But yeah, I know I've seen them smoking, listening to radios.
But did the Aussies say anything like, "Hey, you're drawing attention to yourself"? Or
no. The reason in our situation there was that we were making so much noise because we had tanks and APCs with us. Yeah, no, nothing was said to them at that stage. So. But that's what I keep saying now is that we have to train. Going back those days, my opinion was that we got the had the expertise in training, but we didn't have the technology where the Americans were the other way around. So,
like bookends is somehow
would
have been better to sort of amalgamate and work that out.
Yeah, it would have been, but anyway, that's hindsight's a wonderful thing these days.
Now, as a forward scout, you would have been the first one to be shot at.
Well, I really didn't have that in the back of my mind. I mean, it depends. It depends on what was going to happen. Like, bear in mind, we have our own tactics for like the deliberate and the quick ambushes and all that sort of stuff. Well, the enemy would have had their same aim. So I look at it, if they would have seen me, then maybe they would have set up an ambush and taken out, because they all knew where the hierarchy was, the section commander and our fire support base. So they could have taken them out. In other situations, we always looked at that we would see them before they would see us. Because bear in mind that we were trained, better trained, unless it was the regular army, NVA, then we had one of the platoons in A Company got into a bit of a scrap with one of the regular army NVA battalions, whereas he saw a machine gun that was about to open up on him, and he was a forward scout. So yeah, but he got a military cross out of that. Yeah.
Did you know? Just wondering. Did you know of any forward scouts that actually got killed in Vietnam? Were you aware of any?
A couple of them were killed by their own soldiers, by their own forces, because sometimes the jungle was pretty thick, and when you're trying to wind, you lose the sense of direction, and you may end up coming back on one another. You'd be at the front and end up coming back on another, and some cases, I mean, tension's pretty is pretty high out there. and a couple have been killed by their own force. Whereas that's happened a few times. Yeah, and others have been stood on mines and things like that too. Yeah.
It's kind of like those rear gunners on
Yeah,
their bow fighters. Or
yeah, on the back of the planes, when
Yeah,
somebody
that
fires, and that's the first ones to go. Yeah, but again, I mean, like I said earlier on, is that I had the philosophy of numbers up, numbers up. I still got that today, and with this cancer, you know, okay, obviously my numbers come up, but talking to the specialist yesterday, okay, my numbers aren't up just yet, so good.
it's a positive attitude.
Yeah.
It's great. Are you talking about that kind of tension, always being on edge?
Mm-hmm.
So you'd be on edge when you were on picket, on ambush, on doing a patrol, and sleeping
All the time.
all
Yeah.
the time.
Yeah.
Did you sleep with your gun, or
Yep.
you slept with your gun?
Yeah, right beside you.
Um,
Yeah. Because if something happened of a night, you had to know where it was, grab it, and get straight into a fire position and start opening fire. Yeah.
Did that ever happen?
Yes. Oh yeah. Yeah, that's right. Earlier on, when I was saying about the where we knew we had injured or killed people, but when we went back that morning, we only found the thongs. Yeah. Yeah, I was in bed then. Yeah.
So did you get up in your undies, or you?
Oh no, you sleep fully clothed. Fully clothed. You may have your boots on or off. It just depends.
Now, something that's come up a few times in talking with blokes that have been to Vietnam is the difference between wounding and killing. That there were some weapons that were designed to more or less wound rather than kill. Was the Claymore mines one of those that you try to wound? Because having less men on the field meant better for the enemy, right?
Yeah.
So is this something you've experienced?
We used to use claymores to kill. That was claymores full of ball bearings, and really, if you fired off a claymore, you really didn't have any control over it to be able to wound people with it. Well, the way we used it in ambushes and things like that, we were there to kill the enemy, and that's the way we used it. For wounding, you probably would have been better off using a rifle or something like that. But I have heard that there are some grenades that have a shock wave that you know, you call that to me that's wounding. You know, you're putting them off balance by upsetting the balance system in their ears and things like that. So yeah, but the Claymore mine, that was a very lethal weapon. Yeah. And again, it was a weapon that the enemy learnt to use against us too. In some cases, they used to come in if they'd known that it never happened to us, but I know of cases that has happened, that the enemy would sneak in. We would have it facing out towards the enemy, because you used to have what we call a backblast danger area. There was set a distance where you couldn't be behind it, and we'd have them set out, and they would sneak in and turn them around. Right, whereas if you fired it, all the ball bearings would come back into you, the Australian soldiers. Yep.
Now, ball bearings, what would they do? I mean, obviously they'll kill you, but what is the aim? To chop, to maim? What?
Well, I looked at them as when you get thousands of ball bearings hit you, it'd just multiple amputation in the body, just cuts you in half, or just heaps. Again, depending how close, if you were close to it, I would say it would probably your whole body would probably there wouldn't be much left of you with all these ball bearings if you were point blank, because they just come out, spurt out, and they come upwards. So if you take it, say you're 5 meters away, I don't think there would be much left of you. But they're more or less there to me as a defensive killing weapon.
Now, what about 20 metres away?
Well, 20 metres away, the bottom half of the body be okay. Top half may have a few holes, and so forth. Yeah, Again, it depends on how you set them up. You know, whether you'd set them up facing upwards, depending on how you wanted. You know, for instance, it depends how far you had them set to the track where you wanted. You know, you won't face them up. So if you had them at point blank facing straight across, you're just going to take their limbs or take their legs off, right? But if you had them angled in such a way, then you would probably get them from the knees to the chest. So obviously you were going to kill them. Again, it just depends on how you had them set up as to what you wanted to appropriately have them used for.
Who would set them up? You would set them up?
Yeah, anybody in the section could set them up. The section commander or the 2IC may say, look, we might have orders. They say, right, we're going to set a claymore up here and here. And he may say, righto, number one, you set up that one, and 2IC the gun, you set up that one. Yeah, and then he may come along and have a look to make, you know, where we want them, where we covered the killing zone, and yeah, and then that would have what we used to call a clacker, and would come back to either back to the gun pit, because remember the gun's been manned 24/7, maybe there, but if it's an ambush, it would come back to the closest pit where that claymore was.
Were they used often?
A fair bit. Around Nui Dat probably had hundreds of thousands of them spread around the whole perimeter of Nui Dat themselves. Yeah. Yeah.
And would they be dangerous if a man set them that he would actually be blown up?
Setting them? No. The procedure was such as that what you would do, that it come in three parts. You had the actual claymore itself, then you had the det plus the cord, and then you had what we used to call the clacker. So the person that was setting up would have the clacker in his pocket, so you knew nobody was going to get this clacker and hook it up to the cord with the det. So what you would do is you'd set it up in the position, you would put the det into the place where it's supposed to go, screw it up, and then run the lead back to your foxhole or where your position was, and then you would put the clacker on it. Then you knew it was live. Then you would set. It has like a little safety switch on it, which is just a little wire bar that you just put on there. So if anybody accidentally pushed it down, it wouldn't go off. But anybody setting up, the procedure was anybody setting up would keep the clacker in their pocket, so nobody else would get that clacker and hook it all up while you were actually setting up the claymore.
Sounds like a lot to think about.
I was astonished I can remember all this today.
Now, you were talking about with Chris about doing patrols for 6 weeks, but you could also do shorter ones. Is that correct?
Yeah, it just depending on what the operation was. You know, we may patrol for say a week or 2 weeks, and then the rest of the operation we might be at a fire support base, and just manning guns and doing standing patrols and things like that. I can remember one fire support base that we were at. We ended up challenging the locals to a game of volleyball. You know, so we played volleyball and soccer with them. You know, that's just part of the public relations, and they used to flog us all the time because God, they were good volleyball players. They really were.
The Vietnamese?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They're short, but they can leap. Yeah. Well, the games I played, we got flogged. Put it that way. Yeah.
That's that white men can't jump business.
Probably. Yeah. But I mean, that was it, because the fire support base was just outside this little township. Part of it was you know, public relations. Yeah. But at all times, you know, guns were still being manned and things like that. So yeah, you didn't fear too much during the day, but at night was when the fear factor pretty well came in, because not knowing who was out there, and you know, like the farmer by day and the enemy by night, and things like that. So
how long? Oh, hang on 1 second. Sorry, Mr. How long did you have to wait until you could get some leave?
Normally when we finished an operation, normally it's 6 weeks, we went on our 3 days down to Vung Tau, and then halfway, normally around the 6 month or a bit over the 6 month period, you got your R&R, which was 7 days off. You could either go to Taipei, Bangkok, back to Australia, or wherever the case be. I came home, see Mum. So
After 6 months?
yeah.
But after each particular operation, you could have 3 days.
Well, yeah, depending on your availability. Yeah. It was normally done like in a roster system, because the guns had to be manned during the day and during the night. So not everybody could go in one hit. So you might have, righto, okay, you're going to stay back this week, but next week you'll go down for your R&R or your R&I, and so forth.
So tell us now about R&I. What would the first thing be, to go and get pierced?
Yep. Oh, no, sorry. No. First thing was to go and hand your weapon into the armoury. Go and get shower, get into your civilian clothes, walk down, you've got to have must have your leave pass, make sure you walk down the front gate, grab a Lambretta, which is those 3-wheeled motorbikes, get as many of us in there as possible, so we had power steering, otherwise the front would be off and you couldn't go, and then go down to the nearest bar, and but not get pissed straight away, but you know, and have a few barmy bars, like it used to come either the Barmy bar, which is their beer, Vietnamese beer, and you either had it hot or cold. Cold was a glass with ice cubes in it that had all these funny looking things in them, and hot was just straight out the bottle into the glass. That was the way you drank it.
What did it taste like?
All right.
What about the salvos? Were they there?
Yes, I will always donate money to the Salvation Army. Like we, as a family, regularly go over to the hotel on Bribey Island here, and the salvos come around, and I'll always give them the shrapnel out of my pocket, because some of the places I've came out of, and here's the Salvation Army guy there, with cold cordial, biscuits, chewing gum, and stuff like that. Yeah.
What do you mean you'd come out of the jungle, you mean? And
yeah, we might come out, for instance, sometimes we get what we call a mate den, is that we get resupplied rations and so forth. So we'd have a landing zone for a chopper to come in, you know, to drop it all off and so forth, and he'd be on it, you know, with his cold cordial and all that sort of stuff. Yeah. And then what would happen was that he may stay with us. If the chopper's got to go back and pick up another load, he'd stay with us until the last chopper was to leave, and then he'd go back with it. So I have a lot of time for the salvos. Even during our training, even today, you know, with the salvos, we have supporting. I mean, they're a private organisation. They do it all themselves. I don't believe they're supported by the services, and which is a shame. But I mean, yeah. There's a lot of times where you've been hot and you've wanted a cold drink, and then all of a sudden you get to this point and here they are, you know, all set up, ready to go. Yeah.
Second World War, blokes often talked about the salvos as well.
Yeah, they're worth their weight in gold. They really are. They really are. Yeah.
I wanted to just talk quickly about the friendships that you formed in Vietnam.
Mm-hmm.
You said that you weren't in touch so much with that anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Was that because, do you think, the whole time there was so intense, and perhaps a part of you wants to forget it, and you just sort of cut off from the friends?
No, I think because I got out in 1974, I had 4 years where I was living in South East Queensland and everybody was in North Queensland. By the time I rejoined the army again, and by the time I got to North Queensland, they'd all gotten out. And some of them were national servicemen, and we know when Mr. Whitlam got in, national serviceman any national serviceman was given their discharge straight away, and I think they all just packed their cars up and left, and so forth. I know a couple of them ended up in jail on drugs, so yeah. They got into the wrong scene when we got back from Vietnam, and yeah.
A few people have said that they would have wanted to rejoin because the army felt like a safe environment for them, but they they didn't, for whatever reason. And I suppose, was that your driving motivation, was they know you?
I think they, and we also got on well because we're all at the same age. I mean, we're all drinking buddies together, and we all went out together, and things like that. And I think for the national servicemen that wanted to rejoin, I think, and this is my own perspective, that they were under a lot of pressure from their fellow national servicemen. They want to join that organisation for, whereas, so they didn't get to do it. They didn't rejoin, and they said, so by the time it goes by, it's very difficult for them to rejoin again. And I think a lot of them had other careers, like talking about Dennis, the school teacher. I mean, as soon as he got out, he went back teaching school, being a school teacher anyway. So yeah, but there are a lot of the national servicemen that did stay on. They found it was their bread and butter, and they enjoyed it. So good luck to them.
Can you tell us about the patrol that you went on, where things kind of went a bit skewed, I guess, for you? Well, where it got a bit too close to the bone.
Yeah. That was the one where we'd harboured up, and we'd come out. We started. I was the lead section. We were just working as a 3 platoon. And
what was the brief of that particular op?
We're just going to patrol along the track, and then patrol the track to another location where we're going to harbour up there for the night. So we're just patrolling these track systems through the mountains. We knew they were being used and so forth.
Was it a shorter or one of your longer patrols?
It's one of the long 6 week jobs, yeah, and so forth. So I think that must have been probably about our 2nd, 3rd week into it when this happened. Anyway, we're patrolling along, and then I saw it's just like a big rock that's just there, and when I come back around, you can see it was shaped into as like a cave. So I just propped and got the section commander up, and Toad had a look, and I said, yeah, it looks like a likely enemy camp. So he just brought the rest of the platoon up, put him into, the platoon commander brought the platoon up, put him into I call it an all-round defence, and then I continued the patrol into the area. Again, that's when I started the pulvertations, because knowing that it was an enemy camp, you don't know what was set up there booby trap wise. And then after a while, I'd been through and cleared it all, and then a couple more came in then, and we've got the food cache and the ammunition and so forth, and we destroyed those. And yeah.
What kind of booby traps could you expect?
A pansy pit, for instance. I don't know whether you've seen those where they dig a pit and have bamboo sticks pointing up, and they may have a poison on them. They just have a loose cover of earth on the top. They'd have those setups. The mines, they could have had it mined. They could have a trip wire across. They could have had mines and things like that. So it takes quite a long time to actually clear one of those areas. And normally it's at this case it was just myself that done it, because I'd already was just on the edge of it. So once they came around, and then I continued into it. And fair enough, we found all this stuff.
So we're walking into a spot like that by yourself. What are you initially looking at or looking for? I mean, obviously apart from physical enemy, but
yeah.
Can you give us a bit of a picture on?
Yeah, you're looking for instance, okay, we come across the fireplace. Okay, they'd obviously been there that night, the enemy, because they used the cave as overnight shelter. You're looking at this is when your tracking starts to come. You start looking for signs which way they would have went, and things like that. So the signs I found was they were heading down the track, which was later which we would head off to, which they had mined, which nearly killed me, and it also could have killed a few others too, because not saying how we were just moving out, so we hadn't really sprung out to our full patrolling order things. So you know, so it had the potential there to kill a few of us.
Now, you mentioned that you're sort of getting a bearing on where they may have gone, and it might sound an obvious question to a tracker, but what? And you've talked about looking through the jungle, not at it. So what is it that actually tells you that they've actually gone in a particular direction down a particular track?
Well, you look at, you probably put yourself in their mind, you know, you may look at, say, okay, if I was here, I'd probably go out that way. And you start looking in those areas, but you start looking at anything that may not be natural to the area. There may be a tree there that the shrub's been broken. Okay, I mean, you break a branch on a tree. Okay, after a period of time, it starts to wilt and so forth. So obviously, if it's just been snapped and it's still reasonably healthy condition, obviously it's only just happened. But if it's been there and it's wilted, so obviously it's happened some time ago. They're the type of things you look for, and and in those areas was that you're looking for. Again, if you look at like say a rainforest, whereas you've got the ground has got a lot of foliage on top of it. If it's been disturbed, it will have a different colour. I don't know if you ever noticed it or not. So you can tell there then, okay, that's different to the rest of the foliage. So obviously something's been dug up here, or something's here, or this is a footprint, or whatever the case. And they're the sort of things that you're looking for.
And the Vietnamese, they had a particular sort of footwear or footprint.
Well, yeah, the part-timers used to use car ties with a couple of straps. They used to be called their thongs. And then you had the regular army had the normal boot and so forth. But yeah, we'd look at treads, car tie treads, or they may be slicks. Normally they're wearing thongs in a lot of our cases.
Did you ever come across incidents where they'd kind of tried to trick you, or in terms of where they might have gone, or giving you false signals? Or?
No. I personally not. No. The only thing I really came across was with that mine, which nearly killed me. But that was not really. I just look at either I missed it and didn't pick it up, or they didn't do it. So the only thing they did do was in some cases I know of where they turned the claymores around. Instead of facing out on them, they turned them inwards. So if you did fire them, you're the one you're going to wear them. So.
Now, and it was a claymore that you stood very close to.
No, it was a jumping
jack
mine. Yeah, with the 3 prongs. Yeah, I saw it. I still see it plain as day today. Just the 3 prongs sticking out from the foliage I was just talking about, and the broken twig. That's just a broken twig that had the point was pointing, and a certain distance from that, there's the mine. Yeah.
How far would the broken twig be away normally?
This situation, probably about 10 inches. Yeah, because they used to have set distances where they used to plant their mines. If it wasn't a mine, it may be another mine sign, and it may lead to another one. So they're very, very cluey people. And when it comes to doing that, but they didn't perform to the Geneva Convention and have it marked and signposted like we're supposed to do, what we do. Like mines and minefields, you've got to mark them and signpost them to stay in minefields.
Around the perimeter of it?
Yeah.
Not to tell you where they are, but just to say this area.
Yeah, this area is mined, So, yeah. So that, yeah.
So, of the jack that you saw in the ground next to your foot, I mean, how far are the prongs protruding, and how big are they?
They're probably protruding out of the ground 2 centimetres. Because what they do, they try and hide them with the foliage. I mean, if you have a quick glance, you won't see it. But if you look at the broken twig, and then you look at distance out from there and have a look, then you see it. That's when we brought up the guy, and he just brushed the shrubs away, and we had a close look at it. And so we just marked it as a mine, and dilly-bopped back to our position where we were that night, and called in the engineers to come and blow it up. So yeah, but to no avail, because when we went back to blow it up, they dug it up and took it away. So obviously they'd been there watching us, or they'd come back again to stay the night and realised that nothing had happened with it and took it away.
So what is going through your mind at the time when you're I guess quite tentatively walking down this track, and then you catch sight of this twig? And
it was just something that I saw out the corner of my eye. So I don't know why I looked, or why at that time there I'd stopped and had a look down. I just don't know why, but I did. Something made me do it, and there it was. What went through my mind was, how many of these others are around? Am I in the middle of a minefield? Have I got the guys here? You know, and yeah, all those things start to go through your mind. So once we realised that, no, because this is when we bring this other young fellow up, and he says, he more or less, because he's been trained Viet Cong, he will say, no, there's one here, one there, one over there, whatever case be, but there was only one here, because that's why we had him with us, and so forth. So yeah.
And was it I guess particularly unnerving to realise the next day that it had actually been dug up and taken off?
Yeah, it was, because I'm thinking that if we'd have done something about it, not saying that somebody else is going to be killed by it, but you don't know, you know. I mean, if we'd done something with it, like, I don't know, somehow blown it up ourselves, it wouldn't have been dug up and reused again, you know. And that just wanders, goes through your mind again. Was it used to kill another Australian, or you know, was it used to kill another American, yeah, or the Vietnamese friendlies that we had working with us as well? You just don't know. Yeah.
So in I guess in the day or so that followed, what was going on for you?
I went through a huge what if stage. Like I was saying earlier in the interview, that it starts playing on you. What if you know, I'd stayed a little bit longer here, a couple of seconds here, and or what if I didn't look down? Or what if you know, I was a little bit over there and stood on it, and after a while that just starts playing on your nervous system, and then after a while I just thought, well, you know, enough's enough. I need to have to get out of this forward scouting for a while. So I did, and it put me into the rifle group. So number 2 becomes number 1, and one of the riflemen slips up into number 2, and then we I think about a couple of days after that, we end up going back to Nui Dat anyway, and that's when I was taken from there to the defoliation team. But again, you know, like, there was those days there was no psychological help, I'll call it psychological help, available to you. You just had to learn to deal with it yourself, and so forth. Whereas today, those services are available to people that you know, have been exposed to something that's horrific, and may have that psychological value on them later on. I think a lot of lessons have been learnt from Vietnam to today's current overseas deployments and things like that, whereas that all these things are available. Mm.
So what did you say to your CO? To
the section commander?
Yes.
Yeah, I just said to Toad, so look, Toad, my nerves are playing a bit havoc at the moment. You know, is it, no worries, Lester, what I'll do is I'll put you back into the rifle section, put you down the back, and he goes, Toad was very good about it. He knew. That was his second tour of Vietnam, Toad Dunshea. So obviously he'd been there and learnt a lot of valuable lessons. So yeah, I mean, no, he's very good. Yeah.
Yeah, it's excellent.
Yeah.
And when you got back to Nui Dat, you were saying this morning that you still felt that it was that you didn't want to go back out.
Yeah, I Toad kept he kept close eye on me, so forth, and then that's when this the battalion had to supply a person for this defoliation team. Our company got chosen, the company to supply that person, and then I'm the one that got nominated for it. Now, whether that's a godsend or whatever you want to call it with my problems today, I don't know. But yeah, I got detached to Headquarter Transport Company as part of the defoliation team.
Was it difficult at all to? I mean, I know you're still in Vietnam and in Nui Dat, but going out of your platoon in a way, leaving some of your mates.
Yeah, that was very hard. I felt that I was letting them down a little bit, but they also said, we understand what you're feeling because of what had happened to you and things like that. They said we'd be in the same boat, we'd feel the same as you were. So yeah. But it was because you thought you're letting the side down because you trained all these years to fulfil this position. Now you knew someone's going to come up, else is going to have to come up this position to do the job that I was trained to do. And yeah. But then again, I also had the feeling of knowing that I wasn't going to go back out on patrols again for a considerable period of time. So that gave me time to probably regroup and rebalance and regather my thoughts and things like that.
Well, it kind of leads me to my next question, is because you mentioned how there wasn't any kind of, psych or counselling help in Vietnam at that time. So how did you actually deal with it by yourself at that stage?
At that stage, I probably I probably drowned it with alcohol. I mean, not to the stage where I couldn't do my work or anything like that, but when I finished work, you'd have quite a few drinks and so forth, and then we used to sneak it back to our tent and keep it in the esky and things like that. So yeah, but I never ever drank while I was out, doing the job or whatever the case be, and yeah. So you just learn after a while, and then after a while they'll probably say there was no pain, if you know what I mean, after a while. So so I just thought, well, that's another one gone. I've gotten over that. But then again, when the APC blew up, they re-triggered it all because I was back out again, and when my toenails come off and they're chopping me back, I thought, I'm back in a safe environment again. So
now, what did you know about the defoliation team or unit before you joined it, or as
nothing? Didn't even know it existed. So when I got there, I met the other two guys that were there, and they explained what the job entailed, and then we used to mix this defoliant in a big 1,000-gallon tank. Used to come in powder form in a big bucket. Then we used to just tip it in, drive the truck, brake, that stirs it up, and then we used to have we had a VW motor on the back of it, and 2 spray guns, one to drive, the other 2 would spray out the back. Yeah, and within a day, the stuff would start wilting. So that's how potent it was. But we had no like today, workplace health and safety requirements of commanders and leaders and so forth. We weren't, or I personally wasn't shown what safety gear to wear. Whether it was toxic, hazardous, whether it was going to cause health, and things like that.
So there was no briefing or instruction about
none
the stuff?
Whatsoever. We just get a daily schedule to say go and spray this patch and so forth. So we'd go and fill them up, put it in, and go and spray it and get ourselves covered in it.
So what was the silly question, but what was the label on the side of the drum of the stuff that you would?
All I saw was it had D445T written on it. That was it. I really didn't read the labels or anything on it. I just assumed that everybody else was doing it, that was all right. So, and bearing in mind we were out there spraying, it was in our clothes, in our hair, on my boots, so we go back and wash our clothes. So we were breathing it in through the hot water, the steam while washing our clothes and all that sort of stuff. So I believe I've inhaled a fair bit of it.
So did it have a particular smell?
It did, but I couldn't put my thumb on it at the moment, what it smelled like. But every time we came back from spraying, we were saturated, because a lot of there may have been the wind blowing, and you might be spraying. But you couldn't actually spray with the wind because you'd be outside the perimeter, so you'd be spraying against the wind, so it'd be all coming back on you and so forth. And then also for those that were out on patrols, they used to get sprayed by the aircraft. It would come down low and spray over the trees and kill the foliage underneath the trees and so forth.
So did any of you, it wasn't really of that age, but did any of you at any moment consider, well, if that's what it's doing to the vegetation, it's maybe not the best thing?
No. We knew it was doing the vegetation, but because I personally assumed it was safe because there was nothing there to say anything else that it was harmful if swallowed. You weren't going to drink it, but then again, knowing what you do today, because all the first aid that's taught you, all this stuff can be get into your body through inhalation, drinking it, and all that sort of stuff, and through the pores of your skin. So obviously I've ingested a fair bit of it. It'd be interesting to see about the other guys too. I've lost track of the other guys, how they got on as well.
And so how extensive were the spraying operations that you were doing?
We're pretty constant. When the truck was on the road, 5 days, 7 days at a time, we might be working to do it all. Yeah.
So acres and acres.
Oh yeah, the whole perimeter of Nui Dat. Yeah, and some of it was very overgrown, and you had to get in there pretty quick because it was growing in between the wire and all that sort of stuff. So you didn't have that clear observation out through the wire to see if any of the enemy were coming through. So it was one of those very important jobs that had to be done. So yeah.
So so your principal brief, I guess, is really just to keep the perimeter clean.
Yeah, that was it. Yep. Keep the weeds down. Keep the grass out. And once it killed it. It took quite a while for it to grow back, if it ever did. Yeah. But we used to get a lot of requests for defoliation jobs, around the airfields and things like that. So we wasn't only around the wire, it was also around the airfield. The grass was getting tall, so we might have to do the bottom end of the airfield and all that sort of stuff.
So basically, it sort of seems like it was a unit of weed killers.
We were noxious weed killers, but we still had the everywhere we went, we still had to take our weapons and all that sort of stuff. So because there still may have been the opportunity. In some cases, we may have had to go outside the wire. There's certain ways of getting out the wire to be able to spray on the outer perimeter. And
how would that happen? How would you get out the wire?
There's set areas designated exit points, which only the Australians knew, and normally they were either manned by a military police or a garrison military police person. Yeah. So.
Is it like a bit of the fence was peeled back or something that would allow you to get through, or?
No, they had a proper exit point out of it. With a big gate and things like that, yeah. And it was manned during daylight hours, and they may have had a gun picket on it at night. So, yeah.
So how much? I guess what I'm trying to, find out is how much did you know? I guess of how extensive the defoliants were being used. Not just around the perimeter, but sort of elsewhere across.
We didn't have very much dealings with the people in the aircraft, but we knew that the aircraft was spraying the exact same stuff as what we were, because we were told that, and
And generally, what was their brief? I mean, what were they spraying? Was it just? I mean, was it landing zones? Were they trying to hit particular VC?
No, they were spraying rubber plantations. What they were trying to kill was the foliage in the rubber plantations themselves, and any other foliage that may have harboured enemies, hiding spots and things like that. Yeah, it was. What I know today was it's nasty stuff. So I believe it's banned today anyway.
So how long were you doing that?
Nearly 6 months. 6 months continuously exposed to it. So yeah, so I say I have it in my system. Yeah, but it's not recognised by the government. So
Because
Ancient Orange is not classified as a substance that causes defects in births and cancers and things like that. So that's what I'm led to believe.
you tried sending them your toenails?
No, doctors have seen my toenails, but again, their hands are tied as well. So that's why I'm hoping to have this toxicology report done on the lining of my stomach when the surgeon removes that in a couple of weeks' time. So hopefully it may show, I'm not sure how they do it, if they can do it, that to say that the stuff that causes cancer is actual stuff that you actually sprayed. So I have heard that it can be done. They can narrow it down to the type of foliant. The chemical. So we'll see.
So 6 months with the defoliant team, and you were sent back to platoon.
Yeah, went back to platoon. What they were getting short on reinforcements, and so they said, "Oh, we got young Mengel over there defoliation," so we won him back. I got so comfortable at that stage that I kicked and bucked and tried to stay, but I knew I'd have to go back. So I went back, went out on one patrol, probably for about 4 or 5 days, where we monitored this house, and then we got news that our young company driver had accidentally shot himself in the wrist cleaning his gun. So they knew that I had a license. This is within a company. I had a license, so I was given the job of becoming the company driver. So again, that kept me from back out in the field a little bit, so which is good.
Now, the fellow who accidentally shot himself in the wrist, I mean, there's been many stories of people actually shooting themselves in the foot and all kinds of things on purpose to help get an early exit.
Yes. That's the rumour that went around with this young fella, and I can't prove any difference. I had heard that he was having problems, girlfriend problems, and the quickest way to get home was to accidentally shoot yourself, so to speak. So, but again, that's only hearsay that I got that. But that was from a pretty reliable source that was in Vietnam at that stage. So.
And what about other fellas who perhaps didn't cope well with their tour? Did you see? There's lots of stories of the craziness and chaos of Vietnam.
Yeah.
Did you see any fellas who weren't coping with their time over there?
Actually, one member of our defoliation team, young Righty, he went home on R&R back to Australia, but never ever came back. So he went AWOL whilst on R&R. So yeah, and that's how. I'm not sure what happened. he just didn't show up, so he was classified as AWOL. Now, whether something happened back in Australia, I don't know. I still don't know till today whether he didn't go AWOL or something happened that he couldn't come back to Vietnam or what. But I knew he was having problems. He didn't like it, and didn't want to be there, and so national serviceman, so he just didn't go back. Didn't come back after R&R. Other cases, you just had to learn to live with it. That was it.
But some fellas obviously couldn't.
Yeah, some people couldn't. I mean, we also had the situation over there, and I know of one instance, whereas that if your command element of the company or the platoon weren't performing, and you thought that they may be endangering you, so forth, they may leave a grenade pin underneath their pillow, the little note to say "rest will follow," things like that. So I've seen that firsthand. Yeah.
Sorry, can you expand on that for me?
Yeah, well, what's happened is that let's say that a young lieutenant, for instance, is not commanding the platoon. People get to feel comfortable. How I said to you guys earlier that I felt comfortable. You guys, first impression was you get that with your leaders within the sections or the platoons as well. And obviously somebody didn't feel comfortable with him. He's making poor decisions, and they left a grenade pin underneath his bed, and just to say more will follow if I don't brighten your ideas. So very frightening.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that was one way of saying that they weren't happy with the way that you were performing as a leader. So yeah.
Did he make it through?
I don't know. I believe he did. But it was just something that he probably needed as a wake-up call to say, this is happening. But then again, I also believe that he was having a lot of personal problems from home with his wife and so forth too. So that has a bad conflict on, the way they're interpreting, the way you're performing and so forth, and things like that. So, yes, very worrying.
Yeah, it is. But I guess at the time, it's all about what's happening in the moment.
Yeah, that's right. You put your hand in your life in the hands of these people, and if you're unhappy, So, but I had no problems with our platoon commander, our platoon sergeant, or even our section commander. They were quite good, Mr. Petrie. He was only with us for probably half the tour, and he had to be flown back to Australia. So problems that he had at home, I believe.
And so when somebody would come in to reinforce, particularly at a CO level, would that take a bit to, trust?
Yeah.
A new person coming in?
Yeah. What they tried to do was, let's say, okay, Toad Dunso was I use as a classic here. Okay, he was my section commander. Okay, we lost our platoon commander. Jimmy Doyle then becomes the platoon commander. Well, Toad Dunso then was promoted to sergeant. So we try and keep everybody internal to keep that harmony within the platoon. So then the only thing different was the section commander that we got was Cliffy Bond. He came from another battalion. Like in those days when the battalion was to go home, you could ask for an extension. So what they would do was that you can get an extension of another 6 months. So they would transfer you to the next battalion that would be going home in some months' time. So we ended up getting in Cliffy Bond. He was an Aboriginal. So, yeah.
And how did he fare as a...
with me personally, I wasn't that phased on Cliffy. This house I was talking to you about, the other guy and I on the gun, we were laying dead still, calm at night, because you're listening for noises in the house, so you just lay still, because then you can hear. After a while, you get to hear one of those breathing. Anyway, he came up behind us and accused us of being asleep, especially me, and wanted me charged. And so Toad Dunshane and Jimmy Doyle had a chat to him, and as I explained to him, what we were doing was we were so calm, so quiet. We're trying to listen. Yeah. So it didn't go any further, but I had no respect for the man. And when we came back to Australia, I saw him once, and he'd been busted down to a private soldier and was an alcoholic, and all he was doing was mowing lawns at Canungra. So that's gone 30 years now, some 30 odd years that I saw him. Yeah.
So with the house that you were actually, I guess, keeping an eye on, it was it was touted as a VC.
Yeah, it had a bunker underneath it, with them today, you know that they were very good tunnel rats, the Viet Cong, that they could dig and dig and dig and dig, and we knew that something was going on in there, but we just had to catch them in the action, and yeah.
And this was a house in a local village?
No, this is just a house in the middle of, I won't say in the middle of nowhere, but it was in the middle of two villages, very isolated. I probably, if I was on there, so I probably wouldn't have picked it because it stood out like a sore thumb, and it's something I probably wouldn't have used. But it was obviously had a significant value to them for some reason. So they had to have known that we were there. Because there was a whole platoon of us up the back. So, yeah.
And how were you received by locals on the occasion you'd go through villages, local villages?
Oh, good. Hook the lawyer #1, meaning Australian soldiers #1, meaning top guys. Yeah, and look, they were, again, you couldn't fault them for being friendly, but the spots change of a night time, and you're probably their worst enemy of a night time, in some cases. But yeah, a lot of them respected the Australian soldiers being over there, but you just didn't know who was friendly and who was enemy. So the guy that was saying, "Oh, hook the lawyer #1," may have also later that night put on his pyjamas and been the enemy. Yeah.
Now the Australians had, I guess, evolved quite a good reputation in Vietnam as a fighting force amongst VC,
yes.
I believe, by this stage.
Yeah.
Did that translate in any way for you on the ground?
No, not really. I really didn't give it a thought. Most of this I have found out after the fact, just by things that I've read and things like that. But I mean, I've Mr. Mackay. He's written numerous books on Vietnam, and he's received the military medal and all that sort of stuff for going to Vietnam. And he often goes back over there, and he often has dinner with the enemy commander of the opposing side. Now that there's no more war. So yeah, I mean, I don't know whether I could do that. I tried, but what happened was that we were asked to do a cruise, or not a cruise, a tour of Vietnam. And what we tried to do was that, because I'd been there, I was just going to do like a self-conducted tour, but we had to get approval of the now embassy in Canberra. And when I spoke to the lady concerned, she said, "Oh, you're a member of the defeated side." So I just slammed the phone down in her ear. So she's put me off ever going back to Vietnam. So yeah,
That's not the thing to say, is it?
No, it wasn't. But because I didn't want to do one of their tours, because their tour shows you all their tunnels, their hospitals, and things like that. I wanted to do a tour that what I'd been exposed to, show them what was left of Nui Dat, Vung Tau, you know, the beach, and all that sort of stuff. But no, she said, no, you went defeated side. Yes.
Comfort packages. Did you receive any of those?
No, not really. Mum would send us over some biscuits, home cooked biscuits, and things like that. But by the time they travelled over on the HMS Japara, sorry, the Japara, which was a merchant ship that used to bring over our supplies, you know, they'd be staley. No, not a great deal. Yeah.
Did you hear about the Puncher Postie and Puncher Wharfie campaigns?
Definitely. Yep. It was Puncher Wharfie my day. I was in Vietnam the days that the wharfies were refusing to load the Japara, which had our all our supplies and all that sort of stuff. So that's where we came about Puncher Wharfie. Yeah, definitely. Puncher Postie I didn't hear much of, but the Wharfie I did because of the Japara. They refused to load it. They're a different organisation within themselves. I mean, dealings I've had with them today have been that when the Australian Army got the new Leopards, we went to pick them up from the wharf down in Melbourne, and the wharfies wouldn't let us go and pick them up off the wharf. They had to be taken to Puckapunyal to be taught how to put it into first gear and reverse gear so they could drive it. So my opinions haven't changed that much of the Wharfie organisation.
I mean, I don't know enough about it, honestly, but I suppose they're a pretty strong union.
Very, very much. Very, very union orientated. But I mean, they lost all credibility with me, and I held the grudge probably for a long time. That the ship that supplies the forces within Vietnam, and they refused to load it because of whatever the dispute was. They just lose all credibility with me, and yeah.
You kind of, they sort of, you know, taking care of the middleman. They're not really, by doing that, they're only stopping the men getting their supplies and letters and what have you.
Yeah.
It's not actually making an impact on the right people, if you know what I mean.
No, I mean, yeah, the impact was on us in Vietnam. I don't know what impact they were trying to install on people back in Australia. But I tell you what, they made no friends from us over there when we heard, and that's when we came up with the motto, Puncher Wharfie.
I wonder if anyone did.
I don't know. That'd be interesting to find out, though.
So you were there. Did who unloaded all the stuff?
That was unloaded by the ship staff and so forth. So yeah. See, it was money because the ship's crew, are trained with their cranes. But normally in Australia, the wharfies would load the ships and so forth. So.
What about Aboriginals in the army?
Yeah, I look. Apart from Cliffy, I got on very well with him. You know, to me, we all wear the same coloured uniforms. We've done the same job, and we just had different coloured skin. That was it. Yeah. I mean, at my time in Vietnam and so forth, there weren't that many Aboriginals in the service at that time, but there's a lot more now, and yeah, I reckon it's great. And some of them are getting up into the command elements, you know, sergeants and officers and things like that. So yeah.
The hurting. You were talking to Chris about this bloke. You heard the rumour that perhaps he shot himself.
Yeah.
That was also common in the Second World War as well.
Yeah.
Do you think the army now is, when they do psychological assessments of recruits, they look for that? They look for somebody who might do that?
I'm not sure whether they would pick it up. I, from what I can work out with this guy was that he went home on R&R, left on a sour note. I think he was married with kids. Left on a sour note with his wife, and the only way he could get back, because remember those days, the compassionate situation really wasn't. You really had to have a very good reason to be sent back home. Really good reason, and I'm not sure whether he even spoke to anybody about it. But the easiest way of getting home was to shoot yourself, but nothing that was going to be long term. Now again, I only heard that, but it was from a reasonably good source that told me that that's what he'd done to get out. So, and I have no reason to doubt his word or judgment on that. So, yeah.
The Air Force called it LMF, the low moral fibre. Did you witness anyone who had LMF, the sort of wouldn't go out on a patrol, for instance, or on an operation through fear?
No, not in my time with the platoon. The time I spent in my platoon, no. Whether anything happened with that when I was away for that 6 months in the defoliation team, I don't know. But they were all there when I came back. I mean, I'm sure that if somebody had a fear of something and they didn't want to go back out, maybe they wouldn't have sent them back out. I know on one case in particular that on operation one of the guys was going to turn 21. Well, they didn't send him out on the operation. He stayed back as what they call rear duties, doing the gun pickets, working up in the kitchen and all that sort of stuff, so he could celebrate his 21st birthday. So to me, we had commanders that had a compassionate type strength about their style of leadership, which was good. Yeah.
Did you have one of those calendars of a woman with 365 days, and then you'd get to the 365th day and you'd end up on a fanny?
Nah.
Do you know those calendars I'm talking about?
Yeah, I know the calendars you're talking about. Nah, I didn't have one of those. I was both too busy. I didn't know where they get them from. No, but I knew how many days I had left, and I just more or less had it written up on a piece of chalk on a box. So then you get down to the wakey and go home today, and then you had to take all your pills before you left and so forth. So yeah.
What pills?
What you had to do was you had to take a series of tablets because you've been over there for such a lengthy period of time. There was a series of tablets that you had to take at a certain time each day, one in the morning, one at night. That I think was maybe to kill any bacteria that may have been in your system from the mozzie bites and all that sort of stuff. So, yep.
Did many of the men actually get malaria?
Not that I know of. I mean, I know a few cases today where people have got Ross River fever. Maybe whether that's another word for it, I don't know. But yeah, no, not in my time. Not people I've associated with. So.
I just think might leave some of the coming home stuff also to Chris, but I'm just curious about just the defoliants again. You said they came in huge gallon
barrels.
Barrels.
Yeah.
Did you have to dip your arms in them?
Yeah, that's how we used to put it in. You used to put them in barrels at a time, or scoops, or whatever the case be. I mean, and they were pretty heavy to put them up. So you put a scoop in it, and obviously your hand went into it and threw it into the tank. Yeah, no gloves. No. I mean, going back to what we know today, to those days, you wouldn't do it. But those days we didn't have the necessary procedures in place, or know. I mean, to know what this stuff could. It's like asbestos, you know, greatest thing ever invented. But who knew 30 years down the track that it's going to be an horrific taker of lives, you know. And I've just put this down as well, that may not be as bad as the asbestos, but for those people that were heavily exposed to it, I believe there is that type of illness that we've developed, and you know, should be somehow compensated by the government, if proven, of course, you know. But I have no doubts. I got photographs. I got everything.
Absolutely. But you couldn't recall the smell of that, but can you recall the smell of napalm?
I had nothing ever to do with napalm. Napalm is probably not a favourite weapon of mine. It's not a it can't select who it's going to kill, and you saw a lot of episodes. A lot of documentaries on TV where napalm was used and it killed innocent people. I mean, it has its effects, used the right way, but it's not a weapon that I would use unless I was 100% total that it would kill who I had set out to kill. Yeah, but we saw that it's not selective. It's yeah. But no, I've never ever smelt it. I probably didn't want to get that close to it. Yeah.
Were there any movies that you think that have been made that realistically depict what happened in Vietnam?
No, not really. Look, I've watched that movie with Graham Kennedy about the SAS.
Odd Angry Shot?
Yeah, that's it. And I thought, what a load of wallop that is, you know. I know it was shot down at Canungra and all that sort of stuff, but no, it's some of it's a little bit, but no. Yeah. Look, I've seen the SAS in Nui Dat, and nah, not like that. I'm sorry.
Did you become mates with men outside your platoon, outside your immediate section?
No, not really, because a couple of us that were in 8 Company. I went to defoliation team. Another guy by the name of Brian Ruck, who's another well-known RSM within the army some time ago. He became a garrison military policeman, you know. So I mean, we kept in contact with one another. You know, I drove out the gate, call him some names, and you know, so yeah. And because he was a garrison military policeman, he thought he had more power, but nah. But Rucky was all right. He's a good hand.
And what about the brawling and drinking that went on in the army? Was that something that happened
in the army or in Vietnam?
In Vietnam, beg your pardon. In Vietnam, that continued on afterwards?
I only ever got into one, and we had we before we got into the fight, believe it or not, we set out all these rules. The first one, that drew blood, was the winner. Anyway, so I took my teeth out, put them on my bed, so we had a stoush, and I had a little graze above my right eye, so we called it quits then. He won, so we went up and had some beers together. And it was over. It was over something, sheer stupidity. I can't even remember what it was, but I just remember it was stupid. It really was, you know. And but yeah, it just got to the stage where he challenged me. I said, "Yep, let's do it." So yeah, so I wasn't going to damage the fangs. So so yeah, yeah. But look, there were brawls. There always will be, you know, when there's alcohol involved. But it didn't degenerate to the stage where anybody was going to pull a weapon or a gun on your mate. Well, not that I had seen or heard of in my time in Vietnam, because he lost out on a fight or he was going to get the upper hand or whatever the case be.
Did you see any of the drug taking that happened quite frequently with the Americans in the Australian Army over there in Vietnam?
Look, drugs was readily available to us. Yeah, you could, like, you go and buy a packet of smokes today. That's why you could buy it over there. You can go and buy a packet of cigarettes, which was your marijuana and things like that. I don't mind it, and I tried it, but because I never ever smoked and never knew what it tasted like, it done nothing for me, so I didn't do it anymore. So yeah, it was there. Yes, it was there. It was available, readily available, and I think in some cases that that's probably led to the downfall on a couple of my mates that ended up in Stewart Prison on drugs, taking drugs. So you know, the Vietnam vets of mine. So yeah.
Stewart Prison is where?
Townsville, Mount Stewart. Yeah, yeah. That's going back 73, 74. That you know, they got done for drugs and ended up in prison. Yeah, and I think that they probably dabbled in it over there and got the taste, because they both smokers, and got the taste for it. Whereas I never smoked, and you know, I couldn't see what they saw in it. So you know, maybe I had the wrong expectations of what it was supposed to do to you. But yeah, no, I've never tried it since, or smoking. So
The mental state that it seems you became part of you after almost killing yourself with this mine that day, can you trace it back to that day? Can you trace it back, your flashbacks, to before then, or then, or after that? Have you had flashbacks?
yeah, I can trace them back to the day I was shot at, to that day and the day I was blown up. I can remember them vividly, you know. Whereas other things, I can't even remember. And the toenail, you know, episode, whereas I got up to take my socks off, and here they all are in there. Yeah. So yeah, but yeah, I probably don't get as many flashbacks anymore. Probably because some of the medication he's got me on, but I still have restless nights. I'm not sleeping. You know, Jude will tend to that. You know, a very light sleeper, extremely light, and anything wakes me up. And you know, but there's one thing I can do, is I can just go like that, fall asleep, put my head on a pillow and out till because you're trying to get every bit of shut eye you can. So after a while, you learn just to put your head in the pillow and go to sleep, and that's followed me right through. Yeah. Another thing is that's you know, a lot of people will say, like, a lot of things in the army will say, right, you got 20 minutes to eat dinner or have lunch and all that sort of stuff. Well, my today, I mean, I'll finish a meal and people may just be halfway through it or a quarter way through it, because I got to that stage where I digest it pretty quick. Yeah, so people look at me and say, God, you're hungry. I go, oh, no.
Have you slowed down at all?
No, Jude reckons that once I retire from the army and all that sort of stuff, is going to be, she's worried about it, because I keep myself rather active with Army Reserve, my job, and also the maintenance around the house. And even my Ashman is worried about that too, is when I decide to call it quits, work and all that sort of stuff, what am I going to do to occupy my time? I don't see it like that, but I mean, I didn't think there was a problem with me anyway, but I've got to rely on their judgment, so, and that's the way I'm going. So I'm thinking about, when I do decide to retire, maybe starting a little consultancy business and keep my way active like that, you know, working 3 days a week or something like that, and just downscale and hopefully leave the business to my son Jason, who's into safety in a big way.
Back in Vietnam, you were telling us about the APC that went over a mine.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell us about that day?
Yeah, what was on that day was that we'd come across an obstacle, and the obstacle was this creek crossing. They'd blown the bridge up, so it's delaying tactics, and what we had to do was we had what we call a bridge carrier with us. It's a tank that has a bridge and hydraulically comes out and just fits across the creek, dismounts, and then you ride it, and then he goes across, picks it up, and so forth. So it takes quite a bit of time to really put this thing into place. So in the meantime, you got people going back and forth. So those days they used to have these big anti-tank mines, whereas you might drive across it 15, 16 times, and they might have it set at the 18th time is when it's going to be detonated. So they try and pick an opportune target they know where they're going to get the maximum, cause the maximum damage, which is trying to get hold of your command element and all that sort of stuff, except it backfired them on a little bit on this day. Anyway, we're sitting there and we're just facing out, and all I heard this mighty kaboom, and I'm shouting dirt and rocks, and my ears are ringing, I can smell smoke and everything else, and I said, what the hell was that? And I turned around, and he was the APC, actually sitting on the back end of a tank, probably half a dozen guys laying out in various states of shock and broken limbs, and then whilst all this concurrent activity was happening, people had a Casevac, which were bringing in helicopters, which are specially helicopters, like I use the same as MASH helicopters to come pick the injured up and take them back to the hospitals and so forth. At the same time all this was happening, we had engineers sweeping with mine detectors around our tank and all that sort of stuff, and then we had to make sure that our tank, or my APC that I was on, that we weren't on top of a mine, because it normally happens that when you move off it may come up and explode and things like that. So and after I've been shot at in the other mine and this mine, yeah, it got me down at that stage, but I looked at the guys that were laying there, because nobody can go and treat them, because you don't know whether there's any more mines laying around, so they had to lay there in various states of agony and so forth before somebody could get to them and give them first aid in case there were other mines around. It's something you've really got to see to believe, to see what can happen, what can be caused by mines and things like that, because to see those 6 guys laying there and not being able to do anything, really it just puts a lot of pressure on you to say, there's nothing you can do, but they're in a real bad way in some cases. So.
Did any of them survive?
Yeah, they all survived. They were all flown back home, but they were all in have all various serious back injuries. Some were crippled and things like that. So yeah, and they were part of the defence platoon, D&E platoon, that was coming out to provide protection for us to go out and do the defoliation of those rice paddies. Yeah, but just to see the carnage that it causes, even the APC driver and the way he was positioned in between his 2 front doors, he was just laying there. I honestly thought he was dead. But again, we couldn't get off our APC or do anything to go and render first aid because it hadn't been cleared by the mine detection teams and things like that. So yeah, so that was the first priority, was to get the area cleared, get the LZ cleared, to bring the chopper in to take him away, and then administer the first aid at the same time. And then we just continued on sometime later.
I think that would have been the most difficult part, is not being able to do anything straight away, not being able to run to them to tell them that they'll be looked after.
That's right.
And that feeling perhaps of of powerlessness. You can't do anything.
Yeah, look, it's hard. It's, okay, somebody standing beside you can get shot. Okay, you're there straight first way. You're putting on a pressure bandage. You're talking to them, reassuring and so forth. But this situation, you've just got to listen to them moaning and groaning and crying and yelling for help and things like that. That just hangs with you for quite a while.
I'll bring you back to
Townsville.
Back to Townsville, coming back from Vietnam now. Now, you've mentioned a couple of times the Welcome Home Parade. Now, that was... did you have any way of expecting the kind of reaction from the locals that you got?
We were warned about it. Yeah, we were warned of the situation that that there was elements of the crowd there that were there to heckle and anyway disrupt the parades. But now, I mean, it was I should have stated very early in the interview that it was a very small element. 95% of the people there were there to welcome us back with open arms, because a lot of them were relatives and all that sort of stuff. And Townsville was very supportive of the military at that stage. But there was this rogue element that in there that threw the tomatoes, threw the eggs at us, and threw paint. I wore paint over me, and so forth. And I just thought, well, what bother?
How did that make you feel, though?
Angry, very angry. It makes you so angry that you just want to move out of ranks and find the person that done it. But they're so gutless anyway that they hid. So, it came from buildings and things like that. So, because they didn't want to be exposed and to be caught by the people that were actually there welcoming us back. I mean, there were people there that protested by banners. That's fine, that's a peaceful protest. But they didn't need to, the other element didn't need to throw paint or anything like that at us. We were all very angry, mate. We got back to base, back to Laverack Barracks, and we were ready to get changed the civvies and go back.
And look for them.
But we didn't know who they were, but we were going to find someone anyway. But we were calmed down and came to our senses and said, okay, but we remember this, and you do, and you remember it, you're proud as punch because here you got 2 medals on your chest, the brand new infantry combat badge, 1st Battalion wearing it, you're proud of it because you come back alive. There's a lot of people, guys that were wounded were marching, and they've been through a lot, and they have this done there. And I often wonder today what these people are doing today, whether they're in politics or what. But maybe I shouldn't have said that, but I think some of them are. Yeah.
So you did find out who some of them were?
We had an idea. Yeah. Yeah, so anyway. Yeah, but, yep.
I just got to get my question back. How did you sort of calm down as a group? Was it something that some of your senior officers kind of debriefed you after the march, or it was just more amongst yourselves?
No, military police. If I see you guys in town, I'll arrest you. Fair enough. So yeah, so they diffused the situation because they knew that we were upset. So were they, because they couldn't do anything about it, because they couldn't catch them. They knew it was happening, but there's nothing they could do about it. And but we were just going to go back, and we had an idea where it was coming from and so forth. So.
Now, had you lost any mates in Vietnam when you were over there?
Yeah, I lost one. He wasn't a close mate, but we were acquaintances. and you know, and believe it or not, he died of leukemia. Yeah. Yep. Yep. A married guy. He came back from R&R. And I said to him, I said, mate, you're looking pale. He goes, yeah, I'm not feeling off. I'm not feeling well. He said, I got him to the doctor. Some week later, he passed away of leukemia. Didn't know he had it. So,
Gee, that's quick.
yeah. Obviously, he's had it for a while, and obviously being in Vietnam obviously triggered it off, made it grow faster or whatever. Leukemia, how it comes about and so forth. So yes.
Was that a large? The reason I ask was I'm wondering if that's a part of, I guess, your anger towards the crowd of people who aren't responding well to you. In that it's not. It's one. It's about you having been over there, come back alive, but also it's about the fellas that didn't make it back.
That didn't come back. I mean, I suppose you've got a very valid point there. I must admit, I've never looked at it that way. I mean, I just looked at it as if what we've gone through. I mean, with what we all went through, not just my student, but everybody's gone through a life-threatening situation, and that one is being in Vietnam was the first life-threatening situation. They may have been exposed to have a mate that was killed. I mean, there were quite a number of soldiers killed in the 2nd Battalion. And I think, yes, we're marching back. They're not with us. They've been brought back to Australia. They've been buried with full military honours, funerals, and all that sort of stuff. And to have these degenerates do this to us, I think was just going a little bit overboard. Yeah. But I mean, if I'm 53 today, they were, yeah, a lot of them, some of them would probably be politicians today.
I'd love to ask you who.
Yeah. No, not that I know any of them. But,
Tell me about your experience with the RSLs when you came back.
RSLs. We had probably a very unfortunate experience with RSLs when we came back, and the one being the Townsville RSL. I went to join. I mean, I was a baby face. I'll admit that. I was just turned 19, 2 months prior to going to Vietnam and so forth, and we were labelled as that was a peacekeeping force, a policing role. That wasn't a real war. What would you know about it, young fella? I joined, but we weren't really made feel welcome in the RSL. So when my membership had lapsed, I'd never rejoined another RSL again. You could probably call it sour grapes on my behalf, but I mean, I've joined other football clubs or surf lifesaving clubs because there's no memorabilia or what did you do in Vietnam, or what war were you at, being an RSL and things like that. Whereas football clubs is football, and Mooloolaba Surf Lifesaving Club is life-saving, and you can go there, relax and have a ball. And so I've never joined. But there's one thing I've always promised myself, that I will never ever treat a service person, being politically correct these days, in regards to when they come back from Timor, Rwanda, Cambodia, Iraq. I will never ever treat those people as the way we were treated by RSLs, because irrespective of what type of role you've served in a war zone or a theatre of war, which these have been declared, you deserve the full accolades that go with what you've done. So.
And what about, I guess, the government itself not necessarily welcoming the vets back?
Well,
did that have much of an impact on you at the time?
Well, it did. It probably triggered a lot of things that have happened today between June and I. I was telling you during the breaks about she gave me the ultimatum. the welcome home parades. The first one in Sydney, I didn't go to. I couldn't go to because I was tied up doing a promotion course. I was an instructor. But the second one in Melbourne, and who was the boffin that was taking the salute? Can you remember? I call him a boffin. At those days, he was the Prime Minister. It was Mr. Bob Hawke, and I looked at Bob Hawke and thought, he's the Labor Party. And now, what did the Labor Party stand for in that during our Vietnam era? Anti-war, anti-this, anti-everything else. And here he is, up on the dais trying to take the salute. He got the salute all right. He got the royal salute like that from most of us. So, yeah. But anyway, get back on. Was that Keith Payne, VC winner. I got to know Keith pretty well because he comes from Mackay, same place Jude was, and I got to know him in Mackay. So him and I and another mate of mine, Tits Tyson, got on the hoochie cooch really bad, and we really got smashed that night. And we had a concert put on the next day, and I was too crooked to go because I was severely hungover. But I mean, all we done was just spoke about Vietnam, and I'm not sure whether that opened up a lot more wounds. Keith Payne got the Victoria Cross for his gallantry work. Tits Tyson is a good mate of mine. He was a medic in Vietnam, and that's all we spoke about. You know, we didn't speak about the guys that we lost, or maybe we were talking left-handed Dutch because we had so many beers and so forth. But I will never forget the welcome home parades put on by the Labor government and for what the Labor government stood for in those days while we were in Vietnam. To me, it was just a vote-getting exercise. Yeah.
So,
I still hold strong thoughts and reservations about that.
yeah, no, it's good to hear. I've spoken to some Viet vets who actually felt it was a good day for them, but hearing your story, I'm wondering if it was that salute that actually made them feel good.
Well, I think so. It made me feel good because I mean, for what he, I mean, what was his motive for doing it? I don't know. If he could tell me, I'd love him to tell me. I really. What was his motive? Who put him up to it? You know, was it a PR exercise to gain sympathy votes? I'd love to know, because he was the wrong person to be on the dais to take the salute. It could have been anybody else. Could have been the Governor General. It could have been anybody else other than the Labor Prime Minister for that day. It could have been my wife up there table. I don't care anybody else other than him. And a lot of other people felt the same way too. Don't get me wrong. It was good to catch up with old mates, but we brought up a lot of stuff that I probably had sunk a bit. You know what I mean? That I learnt to put them down, but now they were back up. But don't get me wrong. I still have very good memories of that. A bit I do have, but yeah.
So in that sense, did it actually kind of unsettle you for a while after that?
It did, Chris. Jude says prior to that, I obviously had learned to cope, but she says after that, something happened to me. She said, you just became a fair right bastard, you know, and that's the only thing we can put it down to, was that welcome home parade. And maybe it was because seeing Bob Hawke up there that made me so angry that it's just brought all this stuff back up. Who knows? But anyway, I've now sought help, and I'm on the straight and narrow.
Now, had you, in the intervening time since you'd come home and that march, had you had any, I guess, recognisable ill effects from your time in Vietnam, or being in a theatre of war in general? Not real. I mean, medical-wise, I had severe heartburn, which turns out to be the problems I've got today. But
had a lot of bad, I call them bad dreams. Whereas, you know, I might wake up screaming and shouting and carrying on and things like that. But they diminished over the years as the years got on. And no, but other than that, no, it's just been my health and the dreams now. I no longer have flashbacks, dreams of Vietnam as such, of what I've been through, but they may be something totally irrelevant, stupid things. And sometimes I'll wake up and had a bad night, bad dreams, but I can't remember what I dreamt about. And I, yeah. And poor old Jude, she normally wears them because I break up in cold sweats, and normally we've got to change the sheets and the pillowcases because they're just saturated with perspiration and so forth.
So some of those dreams came back after the march?
Yeah, they're definitely well and truly after the march, but they're still happening today. Not as often, but yeah. I mean, we also on that day that we were that all Vietnam veterans and their spouses were given free entry to a big concert that they had there. So when we went to get in, all the bouncers and so forth said, "No, it's not free for anybody. You've got to pay to get in." So we were up in arms then. Punch a Bouncer was the other one we were nearly done too. But anyway, they hadn't been told that this was the policy was that we had Vietnam vets and their spouses. Jude can vouch for it that we had to pay to get in, to try and pay in this concert. We just kicked up a huge kerfuffle, and they ended up letting us, because we were going to kill these guys. Because that's why most of us were there, was with our. I mean, the first day was us for the Welcome Home Parade, big night on the Wally, talking whatever we were talking, and the second day was meeting up with all our spouses, our kids, all that sort of stuff, and we're going to the concert together. Because it was going to be one of the concerts that we used to have in Vietnam. It was just bring back the old days, the old concerts we used to have, and then these big burly bouncers stand there saying, "You got to pay your ticket." Yeah, like friggin' hell we were. So anyway, to cut it long story short, somebody went and got confirmation that we were let in for free, because we would rip the fence down. That's how angry we were.
It's like, once the stuff up.
She just snowballed, mate. It's run by professionals, it was. I always look back to the man standing on the dais.
It comes from the top down, doesn't it?
That's the way we're taught. And there's not too many CEOs will accept the losses of done by their middle management type people. Yeah.
What about Anzac Day?
Anzac Day is a very, very difficult days for me. Not in regards as to... I've only started marching now in the last 9 years, all right? The kids are the one that got me to march, all right? Okay, in Mackay, there's a school up there called the Fitzgerald Primary School, and I used to march with the kids as a proud dad, Vietnam vet. I march with my two sons, and they've got me back into it. Now that they're in high school, I go. Jason's in the Queensland University Regiment Army Band, so I'll go with him and do all the dawn services and so forth. They'll do their march, and I'll march with the 2nd Battalion. But it's very tearful for me. I've really got to fight the tears on the march. So everybody clapping now, saying well done, well done. That the emotion in me really comes out, and I just can't stop crying.
What do you think it is, Lester?
It's not an anger. It's a happy. It's them saying thank you, but I'm not being able to control my emotion. So we've been thanked for the job that we've done, and then I'll come home and we'll sit here and we'll watch the news at the table. Once upon a time, I'll finish up what I'm saying. I'll watch the news and I'll be watching the parade. I'll be crying, sitting at the table crying. The boys have got used to it now. "Oh, you all right, Dad? Want me to get a tissue?" Okay, oh, that's fine, son. But going back to the Anzac days, that probably one of the reasons we didn't march Anzac days was Darryl Ward, a mate of mine. He's another Vietnam vet, infantry that went to transport. Him and I come morning the morning of the parade. Him and I'd be legless. I'd ring Jude up. All the dawn services we'd get to, we'd still be in uniform and so forth. So I'd ring Jude up and say, look, Jude, you might come and pick us up. And we'd either be sitting in the gutter waiting for her, or laying in the gutter sleeping waiting for her, or leaning up against the telegraph poles. But we were happy drunks. And what we'd do is that Jude would take Darryl home, and she'd help him up the stairs because his wife wouldn't come down and help him up the stairs. So we were, and then Jude would get me home, and and then I'd go to bed and we'd sleep it off.
So the dawn service was something quite special.
Yeah, it was the dawn, because we always had, because being service personnel, we always had to attend dawn service, and so. And it was dawn service where we got. I'm not a rum person, so I didn't bring rum and milk. But it's always ironic that when I was in Vietnam, I shouldn't say this, Jude's probably listening, but she was in primary school when I was in Vietnam. So the culture's taken the learning culture about Vietnam vets has taken a little while, and in some cases there's been a real steep learning curve for her. And some of the moods that she has to put up with me being in and so forth. So but she's been very, very supportive of me. She's been so supportive that in some cases she's been told to pull her head in, which she said she was going to go to the minister because I was still a serving member.
So the armies had to come and try and stop her.
Yeah, she got a note from a colonel to say to pull your head in and to back away from your what do you call it? From your crusade against what she was doing. Mm.
What do you think? Is it in your boys that at a young age caught their interest in your military life?
Jason's he's a military moron. He's the be all end all. He wants to be military. Sam's the quiet achiever. Sam, I reckon, quote me on it, I reckon that he was going to go to ADFA and become an officer. Yeah. He's just the things that he's done, because when I was at RSN Queensland University Regiment, I used to attend regular parades down at Royal Military College, Duntroon, and I used to take Jude and the boys with me. And Sam's got to look around, and the ADF College, Australian Defence Force College, and we'll have a look around there, and just a few things that he's let slip. Jason, because of his physical problems, may or may not get in.
If they did join up and were requested to go off to a theatre of war, what advice would you give them as someone who's been there and done it?
All I would say to him was, son, you've got 100% support from your family. Yeah. You need that. You need that support. And Anzac Day, going back some years down in Sydney, I didn't march, but I was with the boys, and I was interviewed by the Sydney Herald, just standing there. I wasn't wearing medals, because I just thought, those were the funny years, I wasn't wearing medals and things like that, but somehow she picked me up because I had the return serviceman's badge on, and she said, oh, come and introduce yourself, and she done a story. That's the same question as she asked me, but during the interview I started crying, because I'm looking at Jason and Sam thinking I would be supportive. I said to her, I would be supportive of national service. If the boys would call up national service, I would support them either way, whether they wanted to or they wouldn't go. So that's something where I've had to make the choosing, but I think the boys would go, and I think they would join rather than be called up as a national serviceman. Yeah.
As they got shipped off into infantry.
I hope they do. Yeah, I mean, like I said earlier in the interview, if I had my way, if I was the chief of the Defence Force or chief of the army, I would say everybody should do at least a minimum of 12 months, 18 months in a infantry battalion, and then allocated to a corps, because the primary role of a soldier today is a fighting soldier is required to be able to lead and to be able to conduct infantry minor tactics. Yeah.
Okay, we'll end there. Thank you very
Oh,
much.
great. Thanks, guys.